3 million pages of evidence, thousands of unsealed flight logs, millions of data points, names, themes, and timelines connected. You are listening to the Epstein Files, the world's first AI-native investigation into the case that traditional journalism simply could not handle.
Welcome back to the Epstein Files. Last time we looked at the private jet network, who flew where and why. Today we are analyzing cryptocurrency and hidden transactions. As always, every document and source we reference is available at epsteinfiles.fm. So let us start with documented crypto investments. Coinbase, $3 Emmers, Blockstream, $500K, MIT DCI, $525K, because that document trail sets up the first anomaly immediately.
It really does. The anomaly is in the nature of the allocation. Usually when we look at high net worth individuals entering the crypto space, especially back in that 2014 to 2017 window, we see speculative asset accumulation.
Right. They're buying Bitcoin, they're buying Ethereum.
Exactly. They are holding tokens, hoping the price goes up. Yeah. But when we audit Epstein's documented ledger, we see something fundamentally different. We see infrastructure.
You're drawing a distinction between buying the currency itself and buying the actual architecture that runs the currency.
Precisely. That $3 million into Coinbase, that's an exchange. The $500,000 into Blockstream, that sidechain technology, satellite transmission for Bitcoin, and the $525,000 into the MIT Digital Currency Initiative, the DCI, that's protocol development. He's not just betting on a horse, he is buying the entire racetrack.
Okay, let's pull apart that MIT connection first. The Jmail archives give us a very, very granular look at how that relationship functioned. We're looking at a file here titled Evidence of Epstein's Interest in Coinbase, and another, Joy Ito, the Jmail Encyclopedia. The primary document is an email dated April 25, 2015.
And the context here is absolutely vital. April 2015. This is 7 years after Epstein's conviction in Florida for soliciting a minor. He's a registered sex offender.
Which makes him, by MIT's own internal standards, a disqualified donor.
Correct. Disqualified. And yet we have Joy Ito, who at the time is the director of the MIT Media Lab, emailing Epstein directly. And in this specific email, he isn't even asking for money. He's providing what looks like an operational briefing.
He writes to inform Epstein about the launch of the Digital Currency Initiative.
And look at the specific detail Ito chooses to highlight. He doesn't talk about academic papers or student enrollment. He talks about talent acquisition. He writes, and this is a quote, that they have hired 3 core Bitcoin developers. And he names them.
He names them. Gavin Andreessen, Vladimir Vanderlaan, and Corey Fields.
Now, for someone just casually following finance, or even for most people, those names might not mean much. But in the forensic history of Bitcoin, who are these individuals?
They are the architects.
They're the keys to the kingdom. You have to understand, Bitcoin doesn't have a CEO. It doesn't have a board of directors. It is open source code. But there is a very small, very tight circle of people, they're called maintainers, who have commit access.
Commit access, meaning they're the ones who can actually approve changes to the software that runs the entire global network.
That's it. So if you control the maintainers, or even just influence them, you have a hand on the steering wheel of the protocol itself.
And Gavin Andreessen is the most significant name on that list.
By far. When Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudonymous creator of Bitcoin, vanished around 2011, he handed the leadership of the project, the keys, to Gavin Andreessen. Gavin was the lead maintainer for years. He was the public face of Bitcoin's technical reality.
So what Joy Ito is really telling Epstein is, we have hired the successor to Satoshi Nakamoto.
He's telling him something even more direct. We have acquired the most influential technical asset in the entire ecosystem.
And Epstein's response is right there in the archive. Just 3 words.
Gavin is clever.
Gavin is clever. It's so understated. It implies a familiarity.
It does. Most billionaires in 2015 wouldn't have a clue who Gavin Andreessen was. They'd ask, who's that? Or is he any good? Epstein just says, Gavin is clever. He already knows the asset. He understands that by housing the core developers at MIT, funded by money he helped arrange, he has placed himself in direct proximity to the code itself.
Which brings us to how that money actually got there. As you said, he was a disqualified donor. The Jmail Encyclopedia and reporting from the New Yorker reference a kind of Voldemort protocol inside the Media Lab.
He who must not be named. That was the internal directive. It sounds like a joke, but the documents show it was operational policy.
So it was a compliance workaround.
A total workaround. The official administrative side of MIT, the lawyers, the gift office, they had flagged Epstein. They had said no. So the Media Lab, under Ito's direction, created a shadow process. If Epstein visited, it wasn't logged in the official calendar. If he gave money, it could not come from a check signed Jeffrey Epstein.
And we have a forensic trail of exactly how they circumvented that firewall. We're looking at an email chain from February 2019. This is very late in the game, only a few months before his final arrest.
The timeline is so important. February 2019. The legal walls are closing in, but the financial channels are clearly still wide open. Joy Ito writes to Epstein about a funding issue. He says, and I'm quoting, "We were able to keep the Leon Black money, but the $25K from your foundation is getting bounced by MIT back to ASU."
ASU, Arizona State University.
Right. And Epstein's reply is immediate and to the point, trying to get more black for you.
This is a documented money laundering mechanism. Not in the criminal sense of hiding drug money, but in an institutional sense, hiding the source of funds from your own compliance department.
It's donor washing. Leon Black, the billionaire founder of Apollo Global Management, was a valid, acceptable donor in MIT's eyes. So the mechanism, as the documents lay out, was to route Epstein's funds through valid donors like Black or through other institutions like Arizona State University.
There are transfer details in the Jmail archive involving Epstein's accountant, a man named Richard Kahn, and there's specific correspondence about the Origins Project at ASU.
The Origins Project was run by Lawrence Krauss, and the documents show a transfer of $707,122 in unspent donations moving from that project at ASU to the MIT Media Lab.
And of that sum,
$467,150 is attributed to gifts from Leon Black, which Epstein facilitated.
so let's just trace the path of the dollar here. It leaves Epstein's sphere of influence. It goes to a third-party billionaire, or it goes to a university in Arizona. From there, it is regranted or transferred to a university in Massachusetts.
And it lands squarely in the account of the Digital Currency Initiative. And just like that, the disqualified sex offender becomes the primary patron of the team maintaining the Bitcoin protocol.
The question that just stands out in the audit is, why? Why go to this extreme length layering transfers, using third-party billionaires bouncing money between universities just to fund a computer science lab?
Because it was never just a lab. The DCI was the regulatory ground floor. If you look at the landscape in 2015, 2016, 2017, everyone in that world knew regulation was coming. They knew Bitcoin was going to be integrated into the mainstream financial system. If you fund the DCI, you're buying a seat at the table with the regulators, with the central bankers, and with the developers who are deciding how that integration happens.
It's pure strategic positioning.
It is purchasing influence over the architecture of the future economy. And the documents prove this wasn't just some remote passive influence. He wasn't just sending checks and reading newsletters from a distance.
And that brings us to the One Science meetings. We have a meeting schedule here from January 12, 2018.
January 12, 2018. Context again. This is right after the massive crypto crash of late 2017. Bitcoin had hit nearly $20,000 and then plummeted. The market was in absolute chaos. And Epstein is in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
The location listed is Joy Ito's private residence and Martin Nowak's office at Harvard, specifically at 1 Brattle Square.
And look at the attendee list. It is not just Ito. The list explicitly includes the Digital Currency Initiative team, specifically Rob Ali, Madar Zvirza, and Neha Narula.
Neha Narula, she's the director of the DCI.
The director. And Madar Zvirza is a serious cryptographer, research scientist at MIT. These are the technical heavyweights. Zvirza is one of the minds behind the zero-knowledge proof technology that powers privacy coins like Zcash. These are the people building the mathematical privacy of the next century.
And Jeffrey Epstein is physically in the room with them.
The agenda is listed simply as One Science.
What is One Science?
It seems to be Epstein's internal branding for his attempt to unify his various philanthropic interests, biology, physics, computer science, under one command structure. But the key takeaway is the presence of the DCI team. It proves operational integration. He wasn't a donor they were ashamed of and hiding. He was a strategist they were actively consulting.
This just completely contradicts the public narrative that MIT was tricked or that he was kept at arm's length. You do not bring your Voldemort donor to a strategist session with your lead cryptographers at the director's house if you are trying to keep him away.
Absolutely not. That meeting demonstrates complicity. It demonstrates that the DCI team, at least the leadership, was interfacing with him directly. He had access to the intellectual capital of the entire initiative.
And that kind of access gives him information. If you are sitting in a room with the people who are developing the code, you know what's coming down the line. You know the vulnerabilities before they're public. You know the upgrades.
Which is valuable if you are an investor. But it's infinitely more valuable if you are looking to leverage that technology for other purposes.
Let's pivot to the second major evidence block then. We've established this academic bridge. Now we need to look at the bridge to the market, to the wild west of crypto. We need to analyze the relationship with Brock Pierce.
Brock Pierce. He is a ubiquitous figure in these files. In the EFTA documents, his name appears 1,801 times.
1,801 times.
Just for context, most associates in these files might appear a few dozen times, maybe 100 if they're a close staff. 1,801 indicates a high-frequency data stream, a constant flow of communication.
It indicates a pipeline. Pierce was not a casual friend. He was a node in the network. Brock Pierce started as a child actor. Many people might know him from the Mighty Ducks. But he pivoted very early into digital currency. Even before Bitcoin, he ran a company called IGE.
IGE sold virtual goods in video games, like World of Warcraft Gold, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he understood the concept of digital value before almost anyone else. And he transitioned that expertise into co-founding Blockchain Capital and becoming a major figure in the Bitcoin Foundation. He represents the new money of crypto.
And we have an email in the Jmail research file, Key Individuals in Cryptocurrency, dated February 12, 2015. In it, Pierce writes to Epstein and formally identifies himself as Managing Partner Blockchain Capital.
This is the formalization of that link. Pierce is presenting himself as the vehicle for Epstein to enter the venture capital side of the industry. So Epstein has MIT for the code. Now he has Pierce for the deal flow.
And Epstein uses Pierce as a kind of headhunter. There is a very short, very specific email from February 2018. Epstein writes to Pierce just 4 words.
Do you have Coin, guys?
No question mark.
No question mark.
Yeah.
It's a procurement order.
Okay.
He isn't asking for investment advice. He is asking for human capital. He wants a list of people.
And who are Coin guys in that context in 2018?
In 2018, that would mean the key influencers, the big developers, the early holders, the people who actually move the market, the whales. Epstein is aggregating a network of influence.
And we know why he was aggregating that network, because the document trail connects Brock Pierce to a third and very significant figure, and this is where the audit takes a sharp turn into political intelligence.
This is the Epstein-Bannon-Pierce triangle.
We're talking about Steve Bannon, the former White House chief strategist.
Correct. We have an email subject line from June 30, 2019. The date here is critical. This is literally days before Epstein is arrested on the tarmac at Teterboro Airport. He is under maximum pressure, yet he is still working. The subject line is List for Bannon Steve.
And on that list?
On that list is Joy Ito. The document implies it's a roster of the crypto contacts he has been cultivating for years. He is packaging his network, the coin guys he sourced from Pierce, the academic credibility he bought at MIT, and he is handing it directly to Steve Bannon.
Why does Steve Bannon want a list of crypto guys from Jeffrey Epstein?
This brings us to what I think is the most revealing political document in the archive regarding crypto. It's an email from March 11, 2018.
Okay, set the scene for us.
Yeah.
March 2018.
Bitcoin has crashed. The regulatory agencies, the SEC, the IRS, they're all circling. They're trying to figure out how to handle this new asset class. And Steve Bannon writes to Epstein about a project he's working on. He explicitly discusses a plan to, quote, tax the gains of the cryptocurrency guys.
Tax the gains. That sounds like the absolute opposite of what a crypto enthusiast would want. The whole ethos of Bitcoin is libertarian. It's supposed to be unseizable money.
Precisely. A true believer would recoil at that sentence. But look at Epstein's reply. He writes back, love it. And then, pretty powerful.
Love it. He's endorsing the idea of taxation.
This single email completely destroys the narrative that Epstein was some kind of libertarian ideologue. He wasn't. He was a predator. And predators understand one thing above all else: leverage. He saw crypto not as a tool to free the world, but as a giant pot of money that could be controlled or seized.
It's a pincer movement.
It is classic regulatory arbitrage. Just think about the positioning he's created. On one hand, he is funding the DCI at MIT. Gavin is clever. He is supporting the very creation of the technology. On the other hand, he is actively strategizing with Bannon on the taxation and seizure of that same technology.
So he's playing both sides of the fence.
He's betting on the casino, and he is simultaneously advising the tax collector on how to rob the winners on their way out the door. It is a position of absolute control. If you know how the code works and you also know how the tax law is going to be written, you can navigate the system while everyone else gets squeezed.
This suggests a level of sophistication that goes far beyond just hiding money. This is about systemic manipulation.
It's consistent with his entire modus operandi. He infiltrated science, he infiltrated politics, he infiltrated high society. It's only logical that he would try to infiltrate the new financial system.
But it wasn't just at the macro level. The documents show he was also doing his homework on the technical utility of these tools for his own personal use. This takes us to his personal reading list.
The Kindle receipts. We have a receipt here from May 18, 2018.
Again, 2018. He's a year away from being arrested. He's running a trafficking operation that's under immense scrutiny. And what is he reading?
He purchases blockchain technology explained, and more specifically, Ethereum, the ultimate guide, smart contracts, dApps, and DAOs.
We need to pause and explain those terms because he isn't buying Bitcoin for dummies. He's buying a guide to Ethereum. What's the key difference?
Bitcoin is like digital gold. It's primarily a store of value. Ethereum is a programmable world computer. It allows for smart contracts. A smart contract is just a piece of code that executes a transaction automatically when certain conditions are met. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need a bank. You don't need a trusted third party. The code itself is the law.
And DAOs?
DAO, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations. Imagine a company that has no CEO, no headquarters, and no bank account. It lives entirely on the blockchain, governed by code.
Why would a man like Jeffrey Epstein be interested in a corporate structure that has no headquarters and no CEO?
Because you can't serve a subpoena to a DAO. You can't arrest a smart contract. If you are running an illicit network, whether it's financial fraud or human trafficking, the appeal of a headless organization is obvious. It offers resistance to censorship. It offers resistance to being shut down.
So he is literally studying the architecture of unstoppable organizations.
He's studying the utility, and at the same time, he's getting daily market alerts. We found the morning squawk emails from CNBC in his inbox. December 8, 2017, he gets an alert that Bitcoin has dropped to $14,566. He's watching the price, the volatility.
But he isn't being sold a fantasy about it. We have an email from a financial contact, David Stern, dated April 18th, 2018.
And Stern writes to him, flat out, crypto is one of the hardest assets to understand and transact in. This is a warning. He is telling Epstein, this is difficult. This is highly technical.
And Epstein just keeps going. He buys the books. He keeps meeting with the MIT team.
Which implies clear intent. If an expert tells you this is hard and you double down on learning it, you have a specific use case in mind. You are not a tourist.
And that use case brings us to the anonymity utility. We have to look at this through the lens of the crimes he was accused of. Sex trafficking is, at its core, a logistics business. It requires moving people and moving money across borders.
And moving money across borders is difficult in the traditional system. Banks use SWIFT. Every wire transfer over $10,000 triggers a report. Banks have KYC, Know Your Customer, and AML anti-money laundering protocols. If you are regularly sending money to Eastern Europe or South America for modeling fees, eventually a compliance officer is going to raise a flag.
But crypto solves that problem.
Cryptocurrency, specifically in its raw, non-custodial form, bypasses the intermediary entirely. If I send you 10 Bitcoin, it goes from my wallet directly to your wallet. No bank sees it, no compliance officer reviews it, it's peer-to-peer.
There's an email from Joey Ito in November 2017 where he flags a vulnerability for Epstein. He mentions a PhD paper that found a security flaw in the way the bank ING had implemented its cryptocurrency.
This is very telling. Epstein is interested in the flaws. He's interested in the cracks in the armor. And why do you track security vulnerabilities? Either to fix them or to exploit them.
Here's the core discrepancy, though. We have all this documented evidence of interest. We have the books, the meetings, the investments in companies like Coinbase. But when we look at the unsealed probate files, the official list of assets he left behind, where is the actual crypto?
That is the blind spot. We do have a retrospective filing, an email labeled NYMAW from August 14th, 2025, found in the research files, which references cryptocurrency accounts, plural.
So the estate acknowledges that these accounts exist.
They acknowledge the accounts. But this is the crucial difference between a custodial asset and a non-custodial asset. If Epstein held Bitcoin on an exchange like Coinbase, investigators could subpoena Coinbase and seize the funds. That's custodial account.
But if he held it himself?
If he used cold storage, a hardware wallet, which looks like a USB stick, or even just a piece of paper with a 12-word seed phrase on it, that is non-custodial. The private keys are held only by the user.
can you explain private keys for our listeners?
Think of it like a safety deposit box made of transparent glass. Everyone can see the money inside. That's the public blockchain. But the box has a lock that is mathematically impossible to pick. The private key is the only key in the universe that can open that specific box. If you have the key, you own the money. If you lose the key or if the owner dies without sharing it, that box remains locked forever.
So if Epstein moved millions of dollars into Bitcoin or a privacy coin like Monero or Zcash, and he put the keys on a single thumb drive, and that thumb drive is where?
Exactly. Is it in a safe on Little St. James? Was it hidden in the Manhattan Mansion? Or was it memorized? If you use a brain wallet where you memorize the seed phrase, then that money effectively died with him.
This represents a massive potential dark spot in the entire financial audit. We could be talking about liquid assets that are completely outside the reach of the victims' compensation funds.
Potentially tens of millions of dollars, if not more. If he was buying in 2015 or 2016, the appreciation on those assets would be astronomical. And it is completely invisible to a standard forensic accounting sweep unless you find the keys.
That email from David Stern said crypto was hard to transact in, but the later email confirms accounts plural.
The synthesis of those two facts is that he crossed that bridge. He did the homework, he opened the accounts and learned how to use them. The ledger of his investments in companies like Coinbase and Blockstream totals around $4 million. That's the visible tip of the iceberg. The submerged portion, his direct personal holdings, is the missing variable.
Let's go back to that one science meeting for a moment. We talked about who was there, but we really need to address the implication of institutional complicity.
This is the ethical rot at the core of this entire document trail. You have MIT, one of the most prestigious scientific institutions on the planet. They have a clear policy on the books. Epstein is disqualified. But the DCI, the Digital Currency Initiative, was effectively operating as a separate entity when it came to compliance.
They were laundering the money through ASU, but they were also laundering his reputation. By meeting with Epstein, they were validating him.
They were giving him cover. If Epstein then goes to a meeting with a sovereign wealth fund in the Middle East, he can drop into the conversation, I was just at MIT with the head of the Digital Currency Initiative discussing zero-knowledge proofs. That signals legitimacy. It signals that he's on the cutting edge.
It effectively makes MIT a co-conspirator in his reputation laundering scheme.
And in exchange, they got their funding, they got the $525,000, they got the Leon Black money. It was a simple transaction. Legitimacy for cash.
And all the while, Epstein is taking that legitimacy and handing a list of names to Steve Bannon to figure out how to tax the very industry that MIT is trying to build.
The duplicity is just staggering. He is actively betraying the very people he is funding. He is funding developers like Gavin Anderson while simultaneously arming the political predator, Bannon, who wants to seize the fruits of their work.
It really highlights the complete lack of loyalty to anything but his own personal leverage.
There is no ideology here. There's no crypto-anarchist belief system in play. There is only the accumulation and application of power. He saw Bitcoin as just another power vector.
So let's synthesize the findings. We've covered a lot of ground here, from the MIT Media Lab to the Morning Squawk emails. What is the final forensic conclusion?
The conclusion is threefold. First, the investment in crypto infrastructure was strategic, not speculative. He used the MIT Digital Currency Initiative to gain access to the core developers of the Bitcoin protocol, bypassing his disqualified status through a documented money laundering route involving Arizona State University.
Okay.
Second, he engaged in political arbitrage. He cultivated a network of coin guys through Brock Pierce, and then fed that network to Steve Bannon with the explicit intent of exploring the taxation and regulatory capture of the crypto market.
And the third point?
Third, he possessed the technical knowledge, which we can verify from his reading list, and the accounts necessary to utilize cryptocurrency for its primary illicit utility: anonymous, cross-border value transfer. The missing ledger of these personal transactions represents the single largest gap in the forensic audit of his estate.
We know he had the accounts, we know he had the knowledge, we just don't have the keys.
And without the keys, the blockchain is a vault that will never open.
The documents prove Epstein bought his way into the ground floor of Bitcoin development through MIT, while simultaneously strategizing on how to tax and regulate it with political operatives. The location of his personal private keys remains the largest gap in the forensic audit.
It is a gap that likely contains answers we will unfortunately never see.
Next time, the psychology of a predator.
You have just heard an analysis of the official record. Every claim, name, and date mentioned in this episode is backed by primary source documents. You can view the original files for yourself at epsteinfiles.fm. If you value this data-first approach to journalism, please leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now. It helps keep this investigation visible. We'll see you in the next file.